Hello, I'm Bill Monroe, and welcome to 2-Minute Talk Tips. This week's 2-minute tip, use a call to action. How often have you attended a meeting, sat through a presentation, paid attention, taken notes, left the meeting, gotten back to your desk, sat down and thought, I have no idea what to do with that? That's what happens when your speaker skips the call to action. A call to action is what you ask your audience to do as a result of your speech. For example, a call to action for this tip might be to use a call to action in each talk that you do. The call to action on most episodes of 2-Minute Talk Tips also asks you to subscribe to 2-Minute Talk Tips in your favorite podcatcher, and more importantly, to get a little better every day. The call to action on your presentation can vary. Maybe it's about taking a step in the future. Maybe it's to think through how a new policy change in your organization will impact your team. Maybe the call to action is to establish or execute an action plan. For each talk, though, you need to define your call to action before you develop your presentation. You need to make sure your presentation supports that call to action. And don't be afraid to articulate your call to action. Maybe you list that on a goal slide for the deck. Or as part of your conclusion and wrap-up, you have a section on next steps for your audience. I'm a fan of doing both of them, actually. Don't assume that your audience will pick up on what you want them to do. You actually have to tell them. That's not pushy. That's actually making it easier for your audience to consume, to retain, and to act on your content. Beginning, ending, or both, your audience should always leave your presentation knowing exactly what you want them to do. So use a call to action. And that's this week's 2-minute tip. Stick around, and after the break, we'll talk about some contingency plans to have in place before you travel someplace to do a presentation. This week, I want to help you prepare to present without your laptop. I was in California many years ago, and that particular week happened to be that iconic one where TSA released its ban on liquids and gels on flights. It was a bit of a chaotic week for airport security, and I had to actually fly in between the time they announced the ban on all liquids and gels and the time they allowed you to, again, carry liquids and gels as long as they were in containers 3.4 ounces of smaller and fit into a little baggie. So as I went through the regular security process and turned over my shoes to be scanned through the x-ray machine, they discovered contraband to seize. The Dr. Scholl's gel-filled insoles in my shoes were perceived to be a threat to aircraft security, so they seized my insoles and let me continue on my flight. In the ensuing years, travelers have gotten used to surprising and rapid changes to airport security. The latest initiative comes as the TSA has banned any large electronics like laptops or tablets from flying in the cabin with passengers on flights on certain airlines and from certain airports in the Middle East. As I record this in the middle of May 2017, it seems likely that this ban is about to extend to more airlines and more airports in Europe. And it may only be a matter of time before we see those restrictions extend to even more international flights and potentially domestic flights in the U.S. Under this new ban, passengers are required to leave their laptops and tablets in their checked baggage. And most of the time, they'll be safe in there, but not all the time. Most airlines specifically do not accept any liability for computers or electronics in your checked baggage. Your underwear literally has more legal protections for you than your computer does. That means those devices are at greater risk of damage and theft because the airline has no legal responsibility to protect them. I'd encourage you to actually review the contract of carriage for your airline to confirm that if you have any questions. You'll often see these restrictions even posted at the airline counter at the airport when you go to check in. They say that they are not going to be responsible for any electronics in checked bags. Now, I'm not going to argue about whether or not any of this is reasonable. That's sort of a rant for another time. The fact is, this is the reality we live in. Beyond that, a laptop that arrives safely at its destination can still suffer hardware or software failure for reasons completely unrelated to travel. Murphy's Law is an ever present threat. So, how do you prepare for a situation where you travel to an event and find yourself without a working computer? There are two areas to explore, and both play a role in your preparation for this type of scenario. They are content solutions and hardware solutions. Before I get into the details, I do want to comment on some of the costs here. Some of these solutions may cost a few bucks, even up to a couple $100. And I understand the reluctance to suddenly spend that money in the middle of a trip or even in advance of several trips. But remember, your organization is probably spending a minimum of $1,000 to send you on one of these trips, and it probably actually cost them several $1,000s. Don't waste that money they spent on travel just because you're afraid to spend $30 or $100 or $200. If the organization is willing to spend thousands of dollars on your time and your travel, it means that they expect to generate even more in revenue, profit, or value than they spend. And it's your job to do everything you reasonably can to make sure that happens. So let's talk about content solutions first. There are 5 that I'll address, and then we'll move on to hardware solutions. They are, first, know your slides so well that you don't need them. Second, store your deck and your data on a flash drive. Third, store your deck and your data on the cloud. Fourth, email your deck to an on-site contact. And fifth, export your deck to JPEG or image files. First of all, know your slides so well that you don't need them. Part of practicing and rehearsing is practicing without your slides. That means you have to know your material, your key points, your transitions, and your details well. The better you know your stuff, the more effective you'll be just in general. You want to make sure that you can tell your story even when it's just you and your audience. Of course, not having your slides is not ideal because you probably use them to enhance your points, to show important images, to highlight data, to illustrate a process, or maybe to show a video. Speaking without your slides may be your worst case scenario, but if you prepare for this, the other steps will be easier. Next, save your deck and supporting content to a USB flash drive. You can easily carry a flash drive in your carry-on bag or even in your pocket since there are no restrictions on these. You could even put it onto an SD card, and that's slim enough to easily fit into your wallet. You don't have to worry about putting that flash drive into the checked baggage and putting it at that risk. If you have sensitive or confidential information that you want to keep on that drive and that you want to keep with you, you might also want to look for encryption solutions to just keep your data safe in case you lose this backup drive by simply misplacing it or dropping it somewhere or having it fall out of your pocket. Of course, if you're traveling internationally, it's possible you would be required to decrypt it by local customs authorities and immigration authorities, but encryption is still good protection against, clumsiness or just jet lag. If you have your content on a flash drive and something happens to your laptop, you need only to have access to another computer with a USB port or an SD card slot and presentation software, and then you're back in business. Next, store your content in the cloud. Keep a copy of your slide deck and your supporting content on OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, Box.com, or whatever other cloud storage solution you prefer to use. This way, if you need another copy of your slides or supporting data to use on a borrowed computer or to use on your smartphone or to use on a new PC, and you can get to your cloud service, you can get to your content around the world. That's one of the most powerful things about the cloud. Next, if your deck is small enough, email it on ahead to your on-site contact. When you email it to them, they'll have a copy of it on their machine now in case yours doesn't make it for some reason. Plus, if you can get to your email account through a browser or on your phone, you can now also get to your deck in your sent mail folder. Finally, export your slides to JPEG. PowerPoint and other presentation software tools will let you export your deck to a series of pictures or JPEGs. Now, just like your vacation photos, you can just flip through this photo album on a device like you were using actual presentation software. Plus, some smart TVs and data projectors will let you plug in a flash drive with JPEGs on it, and then you just go through your deck using that projector as the primary device. You don't even have to have a computer or other device connected to that projector or TV. Of course, when you present this way, you will lose all of your transitions, your animations, your builds, probably your videos, but it can be a good option in some circumstances. Be prepared and have this available. So there are plenty of other options for getting your content remotely, depending on the time and resources you have available. This is really just scratching the surface. But of course, content is only one part of your recovery system. So let's consider the hardware side of the equation. The hardware solutions are: 1. Consider a burner laptop. 2. Make a late night retail run. 3. Borrow a PC. 4. Use your smartphone. And 5. Ship your gear on ahead. First, consider a burner laptop. If you watch as much Criminal Minds and Castle and Law and Order and NCIS as I do, you probably spend way too much time watching TV. But you're also probably familiar with the idea of burner phones that seem to dominate the criminal landscape across network TV. While their main appeal is that they are supposedly untraceable, the other advantage is that it's a throwaway device. If you lose a burner phone, you really don't care. It's the same way with a burner laptop. Your regular laptop is probably a pretty nice one, and it probably also has all of your sensitive files, your applications, your favorite wallpaper, and the perfect configuration set up just the way you like it. Do you need all that for this trip? If not, why risk it? If your laptop is going to travel in your checked baggage, then the weight of the computer suddenly becomes less of an issue. You can consider bringing a cheap computer with you that just has the bare minimum of software and data files that you'll need. If that computer gets stolen or damaged, it's much lower risk. Less sensitive data is potentially exposed, and you're not risking hardware that people might want to steal just because it looks really awesome. Keep in mind also that with international travel, that means your computer is potentially exposed not only to criminals and sloppy handling, but also customs and immigration authorities that may need to inspect it and its contents. Travelers to some countries may also want to immediately wipe the hard drive on that burner machine when they return anyway. A burner laptop is lower risk because if something does go wrong, it's much less painful. Next, you can make a late night run to the store. One advantage of arriving early enough is that if your computer is lost, stolen, or broken, you can run to a local retailer and pick up a new PC. Cheap Windows PCs can start at just a couple $100 and will likely handle your short-term needs. Macs, of course, will cost a little bit more. If you built your deck in Google Slides or in Microsoft's PowerPoint, you can run that deck on either platform. If you can get to the browser on your new PC or even your burner PC, you may not even need to have your presentation software installed since you can present directly from sites like Office.com. Next, borrow a PC. Depending on the relationship you have with folks where you are presenting, you may be able to borrow a PC and then use your cloud access, your flash drive, your sent email folder, or other content solution to get to your presentation material on that borrowed device. Next, use your phone. None of these device bans that we've talked about are covering phones at this point, and since your phone will always be with you, it's at less risk for loss or damage in checked baggage. It can be a great backup solution for a presentation. Now, we didn't really have this solution 5 to 10 years ago, but modern smartphones have come a long way and can even run PowerPoint or Keynote on their own. If you have an Android phone, you might even have a micro HDMI port on that phone that you can connect directly to a projector or a TV for a simple corded solution. You probably don't have the port, but double check to be sure. Fortunately, Android phones have a great wireless solution. If your phone is relatively new, let's say less than 3 years old as of 2017, and running Android version 4.4.2, you can download Google Home from the Play Store. And then I recommend spending about $35 and picking up a Google Chromecast device from wherever you get your computer or phone hardware and add that to your presentation kit. You see, the Chromecast is a smart HDMI dongle that connects to a projector or TV. Then you can broadcast or mirror the display on your phone to your TV or projector through the Chromecast. The Google Home application from the Play Store is what powers this. Now you can launch PowerPoint on your phone and you're all set. Just make sure that your slide deck is available on your phone through local storage or through your cloud solution or through your sent email folder. Chromecast also lets you do other neat things too, like stream Netflix, Hulu, your photos and videos from Google Drive, and more. It's well worth the money at about $35. You know what? Go ahead and pick up two so you can have one at home and one in your travel kit. If you have an iPhone, it can be a little more challenging. The best solution may be a wired one. Apple sells adapter cables that will plug into the Lightning port on newer iPhones, and adapters that will plug into the 30-pin port on older iPhones, and give you a micro HDMI connection on the other end. Then you can run a cable from that adapter to your projector or TV to mirror your phone display onto that device. These adapters will sell for about $50, and it's a good one to have in your travel bag if you live in the iOS world. The only wireless solution that I'm aware of for the iPhone is the Apple TV. It starts at about $150 and has its own hard drive. While you could wirelessly project from your iPhone through your Apple TV device and onto a projector, it's really not optimized for an on-the-road experience. Of course, I don't have as much direct experience with the iOS system, so if any iOS users out there know of a good way to wirelessly project from an iPhone through a projector or TV while on the road, please let us know in the comments for episode 21 at 2minutetalktips.com. Finally, ship your gear on ahead. In my domestic travel experience, FedEx has been safer and more reliable than checking a bag with the airlines. With international travel, customs may complicate matters, but it remains a viable option to keep in the back of your head, especially if these bans extend to domestic travel in the U.S. in the future. While the ban on large in-cabin electronics may or may not be a good idea and may or may not spread, there's always a chance you may find yourself in the middle of an expensive business trip about to make your multi-million-dollar pitch or life-changing presentation without your laptop. What you do now, how you handle this, may be the key to your success. So plan for it. Know what your contingencies are before you need to activate them. Make sure you know your airlines and airport security rules and policies in advance, but also be aware that they can change without notice and you may have to give up your gel insoles. Understand your content solutions, which include know your slides well enough so you don't need them, store your deck on a flash drive, store your deck on a cloud storage device, email your deck to an on-site contact, and export a copy of your deck as JPEGs. Of course, content is only half the battle. Pair your content solution with the appropriate hardware solution, like considering a burner laptop, making a late-night retail run, borrowing a PC, using your smartphone, or shipping your gear on ahead. There are other ways to deal with a suddenly missing or failing PC on the road. So what's your favorite solution? Go ahead and let us know in the comments for episode 21 at 2minutetalktips.com. That's it for this week. Always plan your call to action and know what to do if your laptop doesn't make it to your presentation. Stay prepared and don't get best, get better.